Right, here's our Chapter 6 test review. For questions 1, 2, and 3, we're changing from a certain form, so percent, decimal, or fraction, and turning it into a different form. For number 1, it's asking me to take 7.8%, make it into a decimal. For percents to decimals, we get rid of the percent sign, and we move our decimal point twice to the left. I've got a missing space here, so I'm going to fill it in with a 0. And get 0.078. For number 2, I'm going to write 1.45 as a percent. So I'm going to take my decimal, and I'm going to move it twice right, and say that this is 145%. Number 3, write 3/8 as a percent. 3/8. All right, my first strategy I want to think, is there an easy way to get it to 100? 8 doesn't really go into 100, so we're going to resort to dividing, which would be 3 divided by 8. All right, 3 goes inside, 8 goes outside. 8 doesn't go into 3, but it goes into 33 times, leaving me with 6. We'll drop in a 0. 8 can go into 67 times. That would be 56. Leaving me with 40 when I drop down another 0, and 8 goes into 45 times. I get a decimal of 0.375. I'll move my decimal point twice to the right and say that this is 37.5%. Number 4 says, what percent of 300 is 51? What percent is referring to P? Of 300, that's W. Is 51, that is A. To set this up, I'll use the proportion first. 51 over 300 equals P over 100. Right, I can do my cross multiplying if I want. Otherwise, I could just say, hey, this is divided by 3. So 51 divided by 3 would give me my percent, and P ends up equaling 17%. Number 5, what number is? That's A. 120%. That's P. Of 70, that's W. A over 70 is equal to 120 over 100. We're going to cross multiply here. I get 100A is equal to 8,400. Dividing by 100 gives me A equaling 84. Number 6, 25%, that's P. Of what number? I'm looking for my whole. Is 9, that's A. I have 9 over W equals 25 over 100. Cross multiply, cross multiply. 25W is equal to 900. We'll divide both sides by 25. I get a W value of 36. Number 7, 14 is, that is A. What percent? That's P. Of 56, that's W. 14 over 56 equals P over 100. We got cross multiply, cross multiply. 1,400 equals 56P. Dividing by 56 gives us a percent of 25%. Lastly, 36 is 0.9%, that's P. Of what number? That's W. 36 over W equals 0.9 over 100. 0.9. W equals 3,600. If I divide this by 0.9, we get a W value of 4,000. All right, for 9 and 10, we're finding the percent increase or decrease. Okay, so for this, again, we want to be thinking big minus small divided by original and then we multiply it by 100 to turn it into a percent at the end. Okay, so for this one, I have 78 minus 24. That's my biggest minus my small. The first number I see is 24. That's my original. 78 minus 24 is 54 over 24. 54 divided by 24 gives me 2.25. I'm going to multiply this by 100% or just move my decimal twice. I get a 225%, and it tells me right here that this is an increase. For number 10, my greatest value is 72, my least is 63, my original was 72. That'll leave me with 9 divided by 72. 9 divided by 72 gives us an answer of 0.125. I'm going to multiply this by 100% or move my decimal to the left, right, or to the right twice, and I get a percent of 12.5%. All right. Number 11, find the sale price of a $42 item after a 15% discount. Okay, sale price. Typically we say that's A. W is our original price, right? It's telling us that this is $42 originally. 15% discount, that's my P. So I have A over 42 equals 15 over 100. We're going to cross multiply here. 100A is equal to 42 times 15, which is 630. Dividing this by 100 gives us an A value of $6.30. Okay, and again, right, this is just a discount, so how much am I going to take away? So I'm going to take my original price and subtract away the amount of discount. Right, after borrowing a bit here, and you do that. That's 0, that's 7. That is 5 and 3. We get a discounted sale price of $35.70. Number 12, find the original price of a tennis racket. That's W. That is $90 after a discount. Well, that's my discounted price. And that's how much of a percent discount I got. So 90 over W. Now the only thing that's different about this, right, it's after an 80% discount. So I have to think, how much did I actually pay? Well, the store took off 80%. I paid only 20% of the original 100% full price. With that being said, I can go ahead and solve this out. 9,000 is equal to 20W. Dividing both sides by 20 gives us an original price of $450. Number 13, find the selling price of a $1,600 item after 33% markup. Okay. Again, selling price goes with A, 1,600. That is our original, so that's W. This is our P. A over 1,600 is equal to 33 over 100. We'll cross multiply. I get 100A is equal to 1,600 times 33, which is 52800. Dividing by 100 gives us an A value of $528. And because this is a markup, this time I'm going to take my 1,600 and I'm going to add 528. I get 8, 2, 1, and 2, So I would say my new markup price is $2,128. All right, 14, 15, and 16 all have to do with our interest equation, which looks something like this. Right? Interest equals principal times rate times time. It says you deposit $20,000 into a savings account. It earns 7.5% simple interest. What is the interest earned after 10 years? Okay, so I'm looking for I. I know that I put in a principal of 20,000 and I get a rate of 7.5%. I'm looking at a time of 10 years. So I'm going to say that I is equal to 20,000 times, I need to make this into its decimal form. So 7.5% becomes 0.075. And a time of 10 years means I multiply it by 10. 20,000 times 0.075 times 10 gives us an answer of $15,000. My balance then would be how much did I put in plus how much did I earn in interest. I put in 20,000. I earned 15,000 in interest. So I get a new balance of $35,000. Right, 15, you deposit 400, that's P, principal. It earned 41.80, that's my I, because it's dollars, in 2 years, that's T. What is my annual interest rate? I'm looking for R. I see that I is equal to 440 times R times 2. These all multiplied together give me 880R is equal to 4180. And then I will divide both sides by 880 to get R all by itself. 41.80 divided by 880 gives us R equaling 0.0475. This is its decimal form. I need to make it into a percent. Moving it twice gives us 4.75% as my annual interest rate. 16. How long does it take an account with a principal of 10,000 to earn $2,064 at a simple annual interest rate of 6.88%? That's my R. Okay, this time when it says how long, I know I'm missing T. I is equal to P times R as a decimal. Right, so here's my percent. Move my decimal over twice. 0.0688 times T. We're going to multiply everything on this side together. 10,000 times 0.08 or 688 gives me 688 T is equal to 2,064. Divide by 688 on both sides. And we get a total time of 3 years. Asks us to look at two different accounts and figure out how much interest do I earn, how much more interest do I earn per year when I go with one account versus another. Okay? The only thing that's different is our rates. So our account A earns 6%, and account B becomes 7%. And my initial deposit is 2,000. And again, right, it's not telling me how many years. So really, if I could figure out the difference after 1 year, it's just going to be that difference every single year, right, and increase by that much. Okay, so we're going to use a t of 1. Okay, so my interest for A is going to be 2,000 times 6% as a decimal, which is 0.06. And just for this case, I'm going to use 1 for my year. This is going to lead me to an answer of $120. That's how much I earn in 1 year. So per year. For account B, it's basically the same setup. I still have a principal of 2,000. My interest rate this time is 0.07. And again, I'm just going to look at that first year. How much do I make? This time, I get an interest of $140 per year. So we would say, how much more interest do I get in account B instead of account A? Well, if I get 140 in B and only 120 in A, that means I get $20 per year more in account B. All right, 18. Order the numbers 66%, 2/3, and 0.667 from least to greatest. Okay. Well, again, before I order things, I need them all in the same form. I'm going to choose percents. So 66% stays the same. 2/3 as a decimal is 0.6 repeating. So as a percent, right, because it's repeating, it's just going to be a bunch of sixes. I would get 66.6 repeating percent. And then 0.667 becomes 66.7%. Okay, notice all of them have a tens and a ones place of 6, meaning I need to compare all of their their tenths place. Okay, in 66%, this is really just 66.0. There's nothing else. Okay, so if I compare 0, 6, and 7, well, it kind of turns out they're already in order. 66% is the smallest because its tenths place is 0. 2/3 is my next smallest because it has a tenths place of 6. And 0.667 is my greatest because it has, in this case, a thousandths place, or in my percent, the tenths place of 7. All right, number 19, percent of change. Right, this goes back to the big minus small divided by original. Okay, this time I have 3/4 to 7/12. Before I can subtract anything, I probably should figure out what is 3/4 with a denominator of 12. Well, 4 times 3 is 12. So 3 times 3 gives us an equivalent fraction of 9/12. 9/12 is greater than 7/12, so we'll do 9/12 minus 7/12. My original was 3/4, and technically I can leave that down there. If you wanted to use this as 9/12, that's perfectly fine as well. Okay. 9/12 minus 7/12 is 2/12 divided by 3/4. This can be written similar to this, which we know dividing fractions simply we would multiply by the reciprocal. 12 and 4 can simplify into 1 and 3, and I get an answer of 2/9. Okay, 2/9, I need to make this into a percent, so I could do 2 divided by 9. 2 divided by 9 is 0.2 repeating, which turning that into a percent would give me 22.2 repeating percent. Because I went from 9/12 to 7/12, that is a decrease. All right, last question. Shelter A has a capacity of 200 beds. It's 60% occupied. Shelter B is 25% occupied. The ratio shelter A to shelter B is 1 to 4. Okay? So, here's kind of what we've got going on. I know that for every shelter A bed, we have 4 shelter B beds. Okay? If I see that shelter A has a capacity of 200, then that means, right, this is really just saying, hey, times 200. Well, shelter B would just be this 4 times 200, saying I'm basically just scaling up by 200. Okay, if I have a 1 to 4 ratio, that means the total capacity of B is 800, because it's every 1 bed in A, there's 4 in B. Okay. What's nice about this is we actually can get rid of some information. I don't need this A is however much percent occupied. I don't need that. All I really need to figure out is, okay, if shelter B is 25% occupied, and there's 800 total beds in B, well, this becomes pretty nice. There's my percent. This is a total, so it would be W. The beds that are occupied would be my part, or A. A over 800 equals 25 over 100. I see to go from 100 to 800, that's times 8. So 25 times 8 would give me my A value. It actually works that there are 200 beds occupied in shelter B. Right, there is our Chapter 6 study guide. Make sure you are using this as a guide and filling out. And best of luck on your Chapter 6 test.